The signal came through the darkness of space like a scream. It bounced from one relay station to another, growing weaker with each jump, but the message inside never changed. Someone was dying. Someone needed help. Someone was begging the galaxy to save them. The Galactic Council received the distress call first. They gathered in their massive chamber, a floating structure between 3 stars, where the most powerful species in known space made their decisions. The message played on holographic screens that surrounded the circular room. Delegates from dozens of worlds watched as the plea repeated over and over. The Caliph representative stood first. Her body was made of living crystal that caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. She spoke in a voice like wind chimes. This transmission comes from Sector 447. That entire region is infected with the Ravagers. The parasitic hive mind has consumed 4 complete star systems in the last 3 months. Any ship we send will be destroyed. Any rescue attempt will fail. A Vryn delegate clicked his mandibles in agreement. The Vryn looked like giant insects with 6 legs and compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans could never imagine. My people have calculated the costs. We would lose minimum 40 ships to save perhaps 2 million refugees. The mathematics do not support intervention. The Thoral warlord, massive and covered in thick armor plating, slammed one heavy fist on his desk. The battle is already lost. Those people are dead whether we help them or not. I will not waste my warriors on a fight that cannot be won. One by one, every species on the council voted the same way. Do nothing. Send no help. Let them die. It was the logical choice, the smart choice, the choice that kept their own people safe. The distress call would eventually fade away, and so would the people sending it. But the signal did not stop at the council chambers. It continued to spread through the communication networks that connected the galaxy. It reached trade stations and mining colonies. It passed through merchant channels and scientific outposts. And eventually, after traveling for 6 days, it reached the newest members of the galactic community. It reached Earth. Captain Jiho was in his quarters when the alert came through. He was a tall man with short black hair, starting to gray at the temples, and deep lines around his eyes from years of commanding ships in dangerous places. He pulled on his uniform jacket and hurried to the bridge of the UNS Indomitable, a human warship that orbited Mars. The bridge was already busy when he arrived. Officers sat at their stations, pulling up data and running analysis on the mysterious signal. First Officer Yuna turned to face him as he entered. She was shorter than Jiho, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and quick hands that could work 3 control panels at once. "Captain," she said, "we have a problem." Jiho moved to his command chair and sat down. "Show me." The main screen lit up with the distress call. The language was old, something from a civilization that died out thousands of years ago, but the computer translated it easily enough. "Please help us. The Ravagers are here. They are killing everyone. Our defenses have failed. Our ships are destroyed. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We have children here. We have families. Please do not let us die alone." The bridge went quiet. Jiho felt something tight in his chest. He looked at the data scrolling beside the message. A colony world called Theta 7. 2 million people. Under attack by a force that ate entire planets. "The council?" he asked. Yuna shook her head. "They voted not to respond. Too dangerous. Too expensive. Too far into the quarantine zone." Jiho stood up and walked closer to the screen. He read the message again. 2 million people. He thought about his own family back on Earth, his sister and her 2 kids. He thought about what it would feel like to send out a call for help and hear only silence in return. "Get me Admiral Taeyang," he said. The communication took 2 minutes to connect. Admiral Taeyang appeared on the screen, a woman with iron-gray hair and a face that had seen combat on 3 different planets. She looked tired, but her eyes were still fierce. "Captain Jiho," she said, "I assume this is about the distress call." "Yes, Admiral. The Council refused to help." "I know. I was listening to their debate." Tae-Yang leaned back in her chair. "They think we are crazy if we consider responding." "Are we going to respond?" Jiho asked. Tae-Yang was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone about to do something dangerous and not caring about the consequences. "The Council seems to forget that humans have only been in space for 80 years. We are still new to all their rules about what is logical and what is smart. I am authorizing deployment of the 3rd Fleet, 72 ships. You will lead them, Captain." Jiho felt his heart beat faster. "The Council will not approve." "The Council can file a formal complaint after we save those people," Tae-Yang said. "You have 12 hours to prepare. Gather every ship that can fight and every Marine who can hold a rifle. We are going into a war zone, Captain. Make sure everyone knows what they are volunteering for." The transmission ended. Jiho turned to his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. He saw fear in some faces, but he also saw determination. Humans were good at being afraid and doing the hard thing anyway. "Yuna, send a message to all fleet vessels. We are mounting a rescue operation in Sector 447. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to leave can do so with no mark on their record. Anyone who stays needs to be ready for combat within 10 hours. Yuna's fingers flew across her console. "Message sent, Captain." Over the next several hours, responses came back. Not a single ship requested to withdraw. Instead, more ships requested to join. Destroyers, frigates, carriers, medical ships, supply vessels. Every captain sent the same message back. "We heard the call. We are coming." In the docking bays, Marines loaded equipment and checked weapons. Engineer teams reinforced hull plating and upgraded shield generators. Medical staff prepared emergency surgical units and stocked up on supplies. Everyone moved with purpose, with speed, with the understanding that people were dying while they worked. Jiho stood on the bridge and watched Earth rotate slowly below them. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives, going to work, eating dinner with their families, watching entertainment programs. They had no idea that above them, a fleet was preparing to jump into hell. "All ships report ready, Captain," Yuna said. Jiho took a deep breath. "Then let's go save some lives. Set course for Sector 447, maximum speed." The fleet jumped into hyperspace together, 72 ships carrying 30,000 humans toward a battle that everyone else in the galaxy said they could not win. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and disappeared. Ahead of them, 2 million strangers waited in the dark, hoping that someone, somewhere, had heard their cry for help. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when Deathworlders decided that some things were worth dying for. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the quarantine zone. Every ship immediately went to battle stations. Alarms blared through corridors. Weapons powered up. Shield generators hummed to life. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Jiho watched the sensor displays light up with contacts. "Report," he ordered. Yuna's voice was steady despite what the screens were showing. "Multiple Ravager bioships detected. Counts are in the hundreds. They are swarming around Theta 7 like insects around a corpse." Jiho looked at the tactical display. The Ravager ships were not like normal spacecraft. They were alive, grown rather than built, massive things that looked like a nightmare combination of squid and spider. They pulsed with organic light and left trails of spores behind them as they moved. Even from this distance, the sensors picked up the radiation and toxic chemicals pouring off their hulls. "Any sign of the planet's defense fleet?" Jiho asked. "Negative. If they had ships, they are all gone now." Commander Wu Jin's voice came through the communication system. He commanded the destroyer squadron, 12 fast ships designed for close combat. Captain, we are reading massive swarm activity in low orbit. They are landing on the planet. Time is running out for those people. Jiho pulled up the attack plan that he and his officers had spent the last 3 days creating. Every other captain in the fleet had the same plan on their screens. It was simple, brutal, and completely insane by galactic standards. All ships, this is Captain Jiho. We are going straight in. Destroy anything that moves. Our objective is to break their orbital blockade and provide cover for evacuation ships. Do not stop. Do not retreat. If your ship gets damaged, keep fighting. If your weapons fail, ram them. We are getting those people off that planet. Confirm orders. One by one, 72 captains confirmed. Jiho took a breath and gave the command. All ships, attack speed, take us in. The human fleet accelerated toward Theta 7. What the watching council observers saw next made them question everything they thought they knew about warfare. Human ships did not maintain safe distances. They did not use long-range weapons from positions of safety. Instead, they drove directly into the Ravager swarm like bullets. The Ravagers reacted immediately. Bioships turned to face the threat. They launched clouds of smaller organisms, living missiles that homed in on the human vessels. They sprayed acid that could melt through normal ship armor. They fired bone-like spears that could punch through shields. The human response was simple. They shot everything that came at them. Point defense turrets on every ship opened fire. Thousands of rounds per second filled space with lead and explosives. The living missiles died by the hundreds, torn apart before they could reach their targets. When acid clouds got too close, the ships rolled and changed direction, letting the corrosive material pass by harmlessly. Contact in 30 seconds, Una reported. Brace for impact. The fleets collided like two waves crashing together. Human destroyers smashed into Ravager bioships at full speed, their reinforced bows tearing through organic armor. Fighters poured out of carriers, tiny ships flown by pilots who had trained in Earth's atmosphere, where a single mistake meant death. They weaved between the massive bioships, targeting the organs that powered their weapons and propulsion. Pilot Doyen screamed through the battle in his interceptor, his hands steady on the controls despite the chaos around him. A Ravager bioship sprayed a cloud of spores at him, a toxic mist that dissolved metal. Doyen did not turn away. He angled his ship and accelerated directly through the cloud. The spores ate into his hull. Warning lights flashed. The computer screamed alerts about hull breaches and system failures. Doyen ignored all of it. He emerged on the other side of the cloud, ship damaged but still flying, and fired 4 missiles into the bioship's main body. It exploded in a burst of green flame. Ghost to Indomitable, he transmitted. That's 3 confirmed kills. Proceeding to target 4. On the destroyer Hammer, Commander Wu Jin brought his ship alongside a massive Ravager carrier. The bioship was 10 times larger than his vessel, covered in tentacles and firing ports. It tried to grab the destroyer with its appendages. Wu Jin ordered full power to the port thrusters. His ship spun away from the grasping limbs, and as it turned, every weapon on that side of the ship fired at point-blank range. Explosions tore through the Ravager's hull. Green blood sprayed into space. The bioship shuddered and began to break apart. But it was not dead yet. With its last strength, it launched boarding pods at the destroyer. "Prepare for boarders," Wu Jin announced calmly. "Marines to defensive positions." The pods hit the hull and burned through it with acid. Ravager organisms poured into the ship, creatures that looked like a combination of insect and fungus, with too many legs and mouths that dripped poison. They moved fast, trying to reach the bridge and engineering. They did not get far. Lieutenant Harron led Marine Squad 7 through the corridors. The Marines wore sealed combat armor and carried weapons designed for fighting in close quarters. When the first Ravager turned the corner, Harron did not hesitate. She opened fire with her rifle, armor-piercing rounds tearing through the creature's body. "Keep them away from the reactor," she ordered. "Use incendiaries, burn everything. The Marines formed a defensive line. When the Ravagers charged, they met a wall of fire and bullets. The creatures were tough, their bodies resistant to normal weapons. But the humans had prepared for that. They used explosive rounds. They used flamethrowers. They used anything that would kill. One Ravager got past the defensive line and grabbed a Marine named Quan. Its mouth opened wide, showing rows of teeth designed to tear through armor. Heron pulled her sidearm and shot it 3 times in what she hoped was its head. The creature dropped Quan and collapsed. "You okay?" Heron asked. Quan stood up, checking his armor for breaches. "Yeah, thanks, Lieutenant." "Stay focused. There are more coming." Above the planet, the battle continued. Human ships took damage. Some lost engines, some lost weapons, some started venting atmosphere through hull breaches. But they did not retreat. They kept pushing forward, kept clearing space, kept destroying Ravager bioships. Captain Jiho watched from the Indomitable's bridge as his fleet tore through the orbital blockade. The Ravagers were dangerous, but they fought with instinct and programming. Humans fought with tactics and adaptability. Every time the Ravagers tried a new attack, the humans adjusted and countered. "We have a hole in their formation," Yuna reported. "Evacuation ships can reach the surface." "Send them down," Jiho ordered. "All transports proceed to surface landing zones. Load as many people as you can carry. Combat ships, maintain the perimeter." 12 transport ships broke away from the fleet and descended through the atmosphere. On the surface of Theta 7, 2 million refugees looked up at the sky and saw human ships coming down through the clouds. They saw the insignia of Earth on the hulls. They saw their salvation. The transports landed in the colony's main city. Loading ramps dropped. Human crew members rushed out, directing the crowds, helping the injured, carrying children who could not walk. The refugees came in waves, desperate and terrified and grateful. Above them, the battle reached its peak. The Ravagers threw everything they had at the human fleet. Bioships crashed into destroyers, trying to bring them down through sheer mass. Swarms of living missiles filled the space between ships. The void itself seemed to be alive with hostile organisms, and still, the humans held. When the last Ravager bioship in orbit exploded, showering the planet with burning debris, Captain Jiho allowed himself to breathe. The transports were lifting off, loaded with refugees. The evacuation was working. "Status report," he said. Yuna checked her screens. 7 ships with major damage, 14 with moderate damage. Casualties at 437 wounded, 62 dead. All transports are clear of the surface. We saved them, Captain. All 2 million. Jiho nodded slowly. 62 dead. He would write letters to their families later, explaining how they died saving strangers in a distant part of space. He would make sure their names were remembered. But right now, he had a fleet to command and refugees to protect. The battle was won. The real work was just beginning. And across the galaxy, other distress calls were waiting. News of the Theta 7 rescue spread through the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Council tried to control the narrative, tried to call it luck or recklessness, but they could not stop the recordings. Video of human ships charging into the Ravager swarm played on screens across 1,000 worlds. Images of human Marines fighting boarding actions in toxic atmospheres circulated through military channels. The message was clear and undeniable. The humans had done what no one else would do. More distress calls came. Small colonies on the edge of the infected zones, mining stations under attack, research outposts surrounded by Ravager scouts. Each time, the Galactic Council debated and discussed, and eventually voted to do nothing. And each time, human ships appeared and drove the Ravagers back. Captain Jiho barely slept anymore. His fleet moved from crisis to crisis, jumping into danger before other species even finished analyzing the threat. The Indomitable's hull was covered in scorch marks and patches from temporary repairs. The crew worked double shifts and ate meals at their stations. But morale remained high. They were making a difference. They were saving lives. On a colony world called New Haven, engineer Nari stood in the ruins of a water treatment plant. The Ravagers had destroyed it before the human fleet arrived and drove them off. Now 5,000 colonists had no clean water, and the nearest relief supplies were 3 weeks away. Nari was a small woman with strong hands and quick eyes. She had grown up on Earth, in a city where the power failed every week and people learned to fix things with whatever materials they could find. She looked at the wreckage and saw potential. "Give me 2 days," she told the colony administrator. "A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. I can get this running again." The administrator's expression showed doubt. "Our own engineers said it would take months to repair. The core systems are completely destroyed." Nari picked up a broken pump housing and examined it. "Your engineers were thinking about doing it the right way. I am thinking about doing it the way that works. There is a difference." She gathered a team of human technicians and local volunteers. They worked 70 hours straight, pulling parts from damaged buildings, rewiring control systems, building new filters from salvaged materials. Nari barely stopped to eat. She moved from one broken system to another, solving problems faster than her team could report them. The colony administrator watched in amazement as the water plant slowly came back to life. "How did you learn to do this?" Nari looked up from the welding torch she was using to seal a pipe junction. "On Earth, if something breaks, you fix it or you die. We learned to be good at fixing things." When clean water finally started flowing through the colony's pipes again, the colonists cheered. Children who had been drinking recycled rainwater ran to the fountains and splashed in the streams. The administrator found Nari in the control room, making final adjustments to the systems. "Why do you help us?" the administrator asked. "Your species gains nothing from this. No trade agreements, no territorial claims, no resource rights. Why risk your lives for strangers?" Nari set down her tools and looked at the administrator with tired eyes. "Because you needed help. That is enough reason. Where I come from, when someone is drowning, you do not stop to ask what you will get for saving them. You just save them." The administrator was quiet for a long moment. Then they placed one hand over their primary heart in a gesture of deep respect. "The galaxy has much to learn from your people." Meanwhile, the Ravagers were adapting. They studied the battles they lost and changed their tactics. They began sending infiltrator organisms, tiny parasites designed to burrow into ship hulls and sabotage systems from inside. They evolved new bioweapons that could survive in vacuum longer. They coordinated their swarms better, trying to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. Dr. Suman worked in a laboratory on the medical ship Mercy. She was a specialist in alien biology, though her current work was more like hunting than medicine. Every Ravager organism the fleet captured ended up on her dissection table. She cut them apart with surgical precision, studying their structure, looking for weaknesses. "They are not actually that different from organisms on Earth," she explained to her assistant, a young technician named Hyuk. "They have circulatory systems, nervous systems, digestive organs. They can be killed if you know where to strike." She pointed to a cross-section of a Ravager warrior organism on her screen. "See this node here? It controls the entire motor function system. Destroy it, and the creature cannot move. It is basically their brain, though it is located in the thorax rather than a head." Hyuk looked at the image with disgust. "They look like nightmares." Suman smiled without humor. "Have you ever seen a deep-sea fish from Earth? Or a parasitic wasp? Nature creates nightmares everywhere. The universe is not kind or pretty. It is brutal and strange. These things are just another example." She was developing countermeasures faster than the Ravagers could adapt. When they sent infiltrator organisms, she created detection scanners that identified their unique biosignatures. When they evolved new toxins, she synthesized antidotes. When they tried to infect human crews with mind-controlling spores, she designed filters that caught the spores before they could reach life support systems. Her methods made other species uncomfortable. She exposed test subjects to controlled amounts of Ravager material. She infected lab animals with Ravager parasites to study the progression. She created diseases specifically designed to kill Ravager organisms. Her reports included phrases like acceptable mortality rates and necessary exposure protocols. But her methods worked. Human casualties from Ravager bioweapons dropped by 60% after she distributed her countermeasures to the fleet. More importantly, she taught other species how to protect themselves. Medical officers from a dozen civilizations studied her work and adapted it for their own people. In the fighter squadrons, Pilot Doyen became a legend. His official kill count reached 47 Ravager bioships, more than any other pilot in the fleet. He flew his interceptor through conditions that should have killed him a dozen times over: acid clouds, spore storms, debris fields from destroyed ships. He survived it all. After one particularly brutal mission, his wingman asked him how he stayed so calm in situations that would terrify anyone else. Doyen checked his fighter systems and shrugged. "I grew up flying cargo planes in Earth's atmosphere. Ever been through a Category 5 hurricane? Or a volcanic ash cloud that can destroy your engines? Or a thunderstorm with lightning that can fry every electronic system on your aircraft? Compared to that, this is just another day at work." He ejected the spent ammunition casings from his weapons and loaded fresh magazines. "The universe is trying to kill us. It has always been trying to kill us. Earth tried for millions of years and failed. These Ravagers are just another thing trying and failing." 6 months after the first rescue at Theta 7, the human intervention had completely changed the war. The Ravager advance had stopped. Liberated colonies were rebuilding. Refugee populations that had given up hope were now planning futures, and other species were finally joining the fight. The Thorol sent 3 battle groups to support human operations. The Calith provided advanced sensors and shield technology. Even the Vryn, who had initially calculated zero profit in helping, began supplying logistical support and intelligence. But the humans remained at the front of every battle. They took the most dangerous assignments. They suffered the highest casualties. They never asked for recognition or reward. They just kept answering distress calls and saving lives. Commander Wu Jin stood on the bridge of his destroyer and looked at the tactical map showing all the human operations across the infected zones. Red dots marked Ravager concentrations. Blue dots showed human fleet positions. Green dots indicated liberated colonies. "We are spread too thin," his first officer said quietly. Wu Jin nodded. "We have always been spread too thin. That has never stopped us before." A new alert came through. Another distress call. Another colony under attack. Another group of strangers crying for help in the darkness. Wu Jin did not hesitate. "Set course for the new contact. Battle speed. We are going to need reinforcements, so request whatever ships can reach us within 6 hours." His first officer began transmitting the orders. Wu Jin returned to his command chair and strapped in for combat. This would be his 33rd battle since the campaign began. His ship had been repaired so many times that barely any original hull plating remained. His crew was exhausted. His supplies were running low. But there were people who needed help, and he had a ship that could fight. The mathematics were simple. The destroyer accelerated toward the next battle, leaving a trail of light across the stars, carrying humans who refused to let the galaxy's cruelty go unanswered. The Galactic Council Chamber was built to inspire awe. It floated in space between 3 stars, a massive structure of crystal and metal, where the most important decisions in the galaxy were made. The representatives who gathered there spoke for trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. Their votes shaped policy for entire sectors of space. Today, they were arguing about humans. Counselor Veth of the Caliph stood at her podium, her crystalline body refracting the light from the nearby stars. We must formally acknowledge what the human fleet has accomplished. They have reversed the Ravager advance. They have saved 42 colonies that we abandoned. They have demonstrated capabilities that exceed our projections. We should offer them a formal military alliance and full council membership. Counselor Rin of the Vrin clicked his mandibles in disagreement. His compound eyes scanned the data on his screens. Their casualty rates are unacceptable. They have lost 2,317 personnel in 6 months. 41 ships have been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. This is not sustainable military doctrine. They fight like they have unlimited resources and no regard for preservation of life. They fight like they care more about others than themselves, Veth countered. Perhaps we have forgotten what that looks like. The Thoral warlord, Corvin, stood from his seat. His massive armored form towered over the other delegates. I have fought beside the humans. My warriors have seen them in battle. They are not reckless. They are brave. There is a difference. They calculate risk differently than we do, but they are not careless with their lives. Every human who dies, they remember. Every loss matters to them. But they have decided that some things are worth dying for. Counselor Rin projected casualty statistics onto the central display. Look at these numbers. In the Battle of Krentar Station, they lost 3 ships to save 4,000 civilians. At the Thenon mining colony, 200 Marines died fighting a Ravager hive to protect 500 miners. These exchanges are mathematically unsound. Your mathematics measure the wrong things, Veth said quietly. You count only immediate costs. The humans count something else. They count the future. Those 4,000 civilians will have children. Those 500 miners will rebuild their colony and create a community. The humans see value that your equations ignore. The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted to embrace the humans as heroes. Others wanted to censure them for violating quarantine protocols and operating without council authorization. A few wanted to study them, to understand how a species from a Class 12 death world could be so effective in combat. Finally, the council voted to summon a human representative to address the chamber. Admiral Taeyang received the invitation and smiled grimly. They want to lecture us about proper military procedure. Very well, I will go listen to their complaints. She arrived at the council chamber 3 days later, accompanied by Captain Jiho and Commander Wu Jin. All 3 wore their dress uniforms, dark blue with medals earned in combat. They walked through the corridors of the station, past delegates from species that had lived in space for thousands of years, and showed no sign of being intimidated. The council chamber fell silent when they entered. Taeyang walked to the central platform where speakers addressed the assembly. She did not bow. She did not show deference. She simply stood and waited. Counselor Rin spoke first. Admiral, the Council has concerns about your fleet's operations in the quarantine zones. You have engaged in multiple combat actions without authorization. You have exposed your personnel to extreme danger. Your casualty rates far exceed acceptable military standards. We question whether these operations should continue. Taeyang looked at him with cold eyes. You are concerned about our casualties? Where was your concern when those colonies sent distress calls? Where was your compassion when families were dying while you debated costs and logistics? We must consider the greater good, Rin protested. We cannot risk fleet resources on every distress call. The greater good? Taeyang's voice was sharp. Let me tell you about the greater good. The greater good is saving lives when you have the power to save them. The greater good is teaching the galaxy that some things matter more than profit margins and safe political decisions. The greater good is showing people that when they cry for help, someone will answer. She turned to address the entire chamber. You called the infected zones a lost cause. You wrote off billions of lives because the mathematics did not work in your favor. But we did not come here for your approval or your authorization. We came because people were dying and we could help. Counselor Veth's voice was gentle. But you are losing ships, Admiral. Your people are dying. This campaign cannot continue forever at such a cost. Yes, Taeyang said. Our people are dying. They are dying to save strangers who you would not lift a finger to help. And you know what we do with people like that back on Earth? We build monuments to them. We write their names in stone. We tell our children to be like them. We honor them as heroes because they chose to do the right thing even when it was hard. The chamber was silent. Many delegates looked uncomfortable. Some looked ashamed. Captain Jiho stepped forward. You say our casualty rates are too high. But compared to what? If any of your species had tried to save Theta 7, how many would have died? How many ships would you have lost? Our casualties seem high because we are the only ones fighting. We are the only ones who decided that saving lives was more important than staying safe. Commander Wu Jin added his voice. My ship has been in 33 battles. We have taken damage every time. We have lost crew members in boarding actions and direct combat. But we have also saved 72,000 civilians. Each time we go into battle, my crew volunteers. Every single one of them. They know the risks. They understand they might die. They come anyway because they believe saving others is worth the cost. Counselor Veth spoke again. What do you need from us, Admiral? How can the Council support your operations? Taeyang's expression softened slightly. Stay out of our way. Or better yet, join us. Send your fleets. Fight beside us. But if you join us, you have to fight like us. No retreat from people who need help. No surrender when the battle gets hard. No abandoned colonies because the rescue is too expensive. If you cannot commit to that, then just stay out of our way and let us work. The chamber erupted in discussion. Delegates argued with each other in a dozen different languages. Finally, Counselor Corvin of the Thorals stood, and his voice boomed across the room. My warriors will join the human fleet. We have seen them fight. We have seen their courage. It would be an honor to stand with them in battle. One by one, other species volunteered support. The Caliph offered their advanced sensor technology and 3 battle groups. A species called the Ventari, who had stayed neutral until now, pledged medical ships and support personnel. Even some of the Vrin merchants quietly offered to provide supplies at reduced cost. Not everyone agreed. Some species continued to insist that the human methods were too dangerous, too costly, too reckless. But the tide had turned. The Council could no longer ignore what the humans had accomplished. Admiral Taeyang left the chamber with new allies and new resources. But more importantly, she left with confirmation that humanity's approach was changing the galaxy's perspective. Other species were starting to ask themselves hard questions about what they valued and what they were willing to sacrifice. On the flight back to the fleet, Jiho sat beside Taeyang in the transport ship. Do you think they will really help? Or will they just make promises and then find excuses when the fighting gets hard? Taeyang looked out the window at the stars. Some will help. Some will fail us. That is how it always works. But we do not do this because we expect others to join us. We do this because it is right. If others choose to help, good. If not, we continue anyway. She pulled up a data pad showing new distress calls. There were 7 of them, scattered across the infected zones. 7 more groups of people crying for help. 7 more chances to prove that the galaxy could be better than its fears. Which one do we respond to first? Jiho asked. Taeyang studied the calls, evaluating threat levels and response times and available resources. Then she made her decision. All of them. We split the fleet and hit them simultaneously. We have new allies now. Let us put them to work. Jiho smiled. The other species will think we are crazy. They already think we are crazy, Taeyang said. Might as well live up to the reputation. The transport ship accelerated toward the human fleet, carrying orders for the next wave of operations. Behind them, the council continued to debate and discuss. Ahead of them, people waited in the darkness, hoping that the Deathworlders would hear their call. And the Deathworlders always answered. The intelligence came from a Kalith scout ship that barely escaped with its crew alive. Deep in the heart of the infected zones, hidden behind layers of Ravager-controlled space, was the source. A massive bioconstruct the size of a small moon, a living factory that birthed new Ravager swarms and coordinated the entire hive mind. Every attack, every infection, every destroyed colony traced back to this central organism. Destroy it, and the Ravager threat would collapse. Reach it, and you had to fight through the largest concentration of Ravager forces ever recorded. Captain Jiho studied the reconnaissance data in his quarters aboard the Indomitable. The numbers were terrible. Conservative estimates suggested they would face over 1,000 bioships defending the construct, swarms of smaller organisms numbered in the millions. The construct itself had weapons that could tear apart capital ships from orbit. A knock came at his door. "Come in," he said. Yuna entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Jiho and sat across from him. "I heard you volunteered us to lead the assault." "Someone has to do it. It is a suicide mission, Captain. Even with our new allies, the odds are impossible." Jiho sipped his coffee and looked at the tactical display rotating above his desk. "When we left Earth 6 months ago, the odds were impossible. When we attacked Theta 7, the odds were impossible. When we fought at Krentar Station and Thenon Colony and 40 other battles, the odds were always impossible. We are still here." Yuna was quiet for a moment. "The crew knows this is different. This is not a rescue mission. This is an assault on the enemy's home. Some of them are scared." "Good," Jiho said. "Fear keeps you sharp. Fear keeps you careful. I am scared too. But I am more afraid of what happens if we do nothing. That construct will keep building swarms. It will keep consuming colonies. How many more people have to die before we act?" He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the fleet assembling around them. Human ships formed the core, but now they were joined by Thoral battlecruisers, Kalith sensor vessels, Ventari medical ships, and escorts from a dozen other species. It was the largest combined fleet assembled in centuries. "We are not immortal," Jiho said quietly. "We can die, but we can also choose what we die for. If I have to die, I would rather die stopping this threat than live knowing I let it continue." The fleet preparation took 2 weeks. Every ship was repaired and reinforced. Every weapon system was tested and calibrated. Every crew member trained for the assault. Admiral Taeyang coordinated the entire operation from her flagship, assigning roles and creating backup plans for when things went wrong. Because things always went wrong. Dr. Suman worked around the clock in her laboratory, developing a bioweapon specifically designed to kill the construct's central organism. She had studied Ravager biology for months, mapping their neural networks, understanding their reproduction systems, identifying critical vulnerabilities. Her solution was elegant and terrifying. A modified virus that would cascade through the hive mind's communication channels, causing catastrophic neural failure. One infection at the heart of the construct would spread to every Ravager organism connected to it. "Will it work?" her assistant Hayuk asked. Suman checked her calculations again. "In theory, yes. In practice, we need to get it into the central chamber of the construct, past their defenses, and inject it directly into the queen organism. Small problem." "What is the small problem?" "Everything between here and there will try to kill us." Engineer Nari had a different role in the operation. She rigged the Indomitable's main reactor with an overload sequence. If the biological attack failed, if the virus did not work, They would detonate the ship inside the construct. The explosion would be large enough to sterilize the entire structure and everything within 100 kilometers. "This is a one-way ticket," she told Captain Jiho when presenting the plan. Jiho looked at the technical specifications. "Can the crew evacuate before detonation?" "Maybe. If everything goes perfectly, but you know how often things go perfectly. Then we make sure the biological weapon works. This is the backup plan. The plan we only use if there is no other choice." The fleet jumped into hyperspace together, hundreds of ships traveling in formation toward the heart of the infected zones. On the way, Jiho recorded a message to be sent back to Earth if the mission failed. He talked about the crew, about their courage, about how proud he was to serve with them. He explained why they were doing this, why it mattered, why some things were worth any cost. He did not send the message, not yet. There was still hope. They dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the construct's defense perimeter. The sensors immediately lit up with contact warnings. Bioships swarmed in every direction. The construct itself dominated the view, a massive pulsing thing that looked like a tumor growing in space, covered in organic weapons and surrounded by a cloud of smaller organisms. "All ships," Admiral Taeyang's voice came through the communication system. "This is what we came for. The entire Ravager threat begins and ends here. We destroy this. We end the war. Stay in formation. Support each other. And remember why we fight." The fleet advanced. The Ravagers met them with everything they had. The battle that followed made all previous engagements look small by comparison. Bioships by the hundreds crashed into the fleet's formation. Swarms of living missiles filled the space between vessels. The construct's weapons fired beams of concentrated acid that could melt through shields and hull plating. The Allied fleet fought back with coordinated precision. Thorough battlecruisers formed the front line, their heavy armor absorbing punishment while their weapons tore through bioships. Calith sensor vessels identified priority targets and directed fire. Human destroyers like Commander Wu Jin's ship drove deep into the Ravager formations, breaking their coordination. Pilot Doyen flew through chaos that would have killed lesser pilots 100 times over. His fighter screamed between exploding bioships and weapons fire that lit up space like a deadly light show. He had one mission: clear a path to the construct for the boarding teams. "Ghost to Indomitable," he transmitted. "Path is clear. You have maybe 5 minutes before they close it again. Go now." Jiho ordered the Indomitable forward. The ship accelerated toward the construct, taking fire from every direction. Shields failed. Hull plating burned away. Systems went offline, but the ship kept moving. Lieutenant Heron and Marine Squad 7 stood ready in the deployment bay, wearing their combat armor and carrying the biological weapon in a secured container. They had one chance to deliver it, one opportunity to end this. The Indomitable crashed into the construct's outer hull. Boarding drills punched through the organic material. Heron led her squad into the pulsing corridors, moving fast, shooting anything that moved. The interior of the construct was like fighting inside a living body. Walls that breathed, floors that tried to grab their feet, air thick with spores and biological waste. "Stay together," Heron ordered. "We are almost at the central chamber." They fought through waves of defender organisms. Marines fell, overwhelmed by numbers or caught by bioweapons. But the squad kept pushing forward. Heron could hear her own breathing inside her helmet, rapid and harsh. Every muscle ached. Her ammunition was running low, but they were close. The central chamber opened before them like a cathedral made of flesh. In the center, massive and pulsing with sick light, was the queen organism, the thing that controlled the entire hive mind, the heart of the Ravager threat. Heron ran forward, dodging tentacles and weapons fire. She reached the organism and jammed the biological weapon into its surface, pushing the injector deep into the tissue. The virus deployed, spreading through the queen's body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the queen organism began to scream, not with sound, but with some kind of psychic broadcast that made every human in the construct clutch their heads in pain. The scream spread through the hive mind's neural network, carrying the virus to every connected organism. Across the battle, Ravager bioships suddenly stopped coordinating. Swarms lost cohesion. The construct itself began to shudder and break apart. The virus was working. "All teams, evacuate now," Jiho ordered. "The construct is coming apart. Get back to the ships." Heron pulled her surviving squad members back toward the boarding point. The walls around them were dying, dissolving into biological waste. They ran through corridors that collapsed behind them, jumped over gaps that opened in the floor, and barely made it back to the Indomitable before the section they were in broke away completely. The fleet pulled back as the construct tore itself apart in a slow-motion explosion of organic matter. Bioships across the entire sector went into seizures and stopped functioning. The Ravager coordination network collapsed completely. When the construct finally exploded in a pulse of energy that could be seen from 3 systems away, Captain Jiho allowed himself to believe they had won. The threat was broken. Not eliminated completely, but broken beyond recovery. The fleet limped home. Damaged ships helped each other maintain formation. Medics worked to save the wounded. Everyone counted their losses and mourned their dead. Back on Theta 7, now renamed Hope's Landing, the Galactic Council built a monument. It listed the names of every person who died in the campaign, human and alien alike. At the base, an inscription read, "They came from a world that tried to kill them every day. They heard strangers crying for help. They came anyway. The galaxy will never forget." Captain Jiho attended the dedication ceremony. He stood with survivors from dozens of species, with children who would never have been born without the intervention, with families who owed their lives to human courage. "Was it worth it?" Yuna asked him quietly, her voice carrying the weight of remembering all the friends they had lost. Jiho looked at the monument, at the names carved in stone, at the crowd of people who were alive because those names had chosen to fight. He thought about the distress call that started everything, that plea for help that everyone else ignored. "Ask them," he said, gesturing to the survivors. Across the galaxy, human ships continued to patrol. They responded to distress calls. They protected colonies. They proved over and over that Deathworlders were defined not by the harshness of their world, but by their refusal to let that harshness break their compassion. Earth had tried to kill humanity for millions of years and created a species that valued life above everything else. The galaxy was slowly learning that lesson. And whenever a distress call echoed through the void, somewhere a human ship would turn toward the sound, because that is what Deathworlders do. They hear the call, they answer, and they never, ever leave anyone behind.